It's a mad, mad world we're living in. You really have to dig deep to hold your head up and not go down. We learnt the stories of how to survive hard times from our grandparents.
I asked my grandmother once if she remembered any talk of famine from her parents or her grandparents. She said travellers were always in a famine. It's just, we knew how to survive. The country people were that long settled in the ways that when the spuds didn't grow, they didn't know how to keep living. But we were always in a famine. I remember the old woman saying to me, when we were starving of the hunger, we'd move on. We were nomads. We knew where there was a waterhole. We knew how to find food. We were always in the famine, she said. We had to survive.
Many travellers learn about worry, despair and heartbreak at a very young age. We also learn about getting through these very hard times. Long after my first brother died at 4 years of age, my father and mother would say, "We have to keep going for the rest of you." When my second brother passed away, we thought it killed him. They'd say, "What can we do? We have to keep going for the rest of you." When my third brother passed away, they said, "It's not that we're brilliant or special, but we have to keep going for the rest of you." My grandmother said the same thing. She lost her husband at a young age and seen a lot of her children die before her. But she said she had to go on because she had so many more. I too have learned these strengths because I'm the eldest of so many. I keep going for the rest of them.
These are some of our stories of how we managed to keep going for each other through prison times.
The worry we feel for each other shows that we're keeping the bonds of love strong in our hearts.
Holding family bonds in a 6-minute phone call takes special care when you have children. I make sure I talk to all my children. They want to hear the sound of their daddy's voice. I let each child know that I'm thinking about them and that I love them. Some of us prepare for our phone calls to make the conversation kind of more enjoyable for the children. I watch things I'm completely not interested in, so I'm able to talk to my children about what they like. I'm not great at football over, but my young fella, he loves the football. I check the scores and who scored a goal and who's the best player. For my daughter, I'll watch expose or check the entertainment news or whatever I can talk about. Say Justin Bieber. It's for them to know that I'm still part of their life on the outside. When you're able to have a normal conversation, you're kind of reassuring them that you're okay.
Visits are very precious for showing their love and care. I make sure I kiss and hug my partner and my children and tell them that I love them. To show my family that their connection is strong with me, I make sure I don't move when the officers are saying, "Finish up now, folks." Oh, I keep speaking or just messing with the children. I let my family walk away from me first. I still sitting there yapping. And when they go to the door, they wave, and you could hear the children saying, "I love you, Daddy." You could hear your parents telling you, "She loves you too." I don't leave the visiting box until they are gone.
Keeping family bonds connects us with our hopes for the future. Hope is a very big thing when you're in prison. Keeping in contact with family and hearing about people asking for you. Having someone to go home to. Knowing love is still standing strong. It's your family who keeps you going in places like this.
I go through the stress of getting to visit so my children can see their father. My daughter leaves a million notes around the house. I love my daddy. I can't wait to see my daddy. I hope that my daddy gets out soon. I go for myself too, for the love that's still there, and I hope for him to get out soon, and for my life to get back on track. Sometimes there are important words that just won't get out on a prison visit. You might have to find easier ways for the words to get out. When I had my baby by a caesarean section, and my partner rang me from the prison. He was high on drugs. My blood was boiling, and that's when the reality hit me. The doctors told me I could have died, but I blessed myself to be alive, and I'll get on with the rest of my life. I know I didn't want life of him, and the drink and drugs, in and out of jail. I didn't want the life of him looking down on me, and I didn't want my children watching a life like this as if it's normal. My little boy will not live his life in and out of the jail, giving his partner a hard time, and my little girls will never be looked down upon by no man. I proved I can rear my children by myself. It's been very hard, but I can do it. I was reared up to be independent, and I've been cooking dinner since I was 8 years of age. I love my partner, and I want him in my life, but I proved I don't need him, and I don't need any man. So I got a pen and a notepad, and I did not stop writing until I got the last word. I wrote 38 pages of what I went through the first time he was in prison, and what I'm not going through ever again. I wrote for a week in between bloods, sleep and feeding the baby. It was the first time I ever stood up to him, and it did. It felt great, but I gave him a choice. The drugs or me and the children. He made up his mind and he picked us. Now he knows that what matters is under this roof, and I'm free to speak to him now. We're 50-50.
It's simple to be a father, but being a parent is something different. For me, being a father is about spending quality time with my children. Even if it's sitting on the ground for 2 hours, just letting them tear the hair of my head. When I went into prison, the fear of losing my partner and children was like a car setting me, pressing down on my chest. I was stuck and I couldn't breathe. Drugs and self-harm didn't help either. I reached out for help, and I did that for my partner. I spoke to my medic and he linked me with an addiction counsellor. I laid it all on the table for her and how I was feeling, and the weight just lifted off my chest. I was at ease. Now I go to the addiction counsellor in prison every second week. I'm doing it for the past 2 years. She supports me to stay connected with all I have and what I'll have to live for. My partner and my children.
My brother got the better of his addiction on numerous occasions, for weeks and sometimes months. There's no more of that messing, he'd say. I'd say to him, how are you going to be able to do this? Because there was no services to turn to. He told me it was hard, but he had to try. He wanted to be there for his girlfriend and his little girl. During these times, he'd be straight home to his girlfriend. He loved cooking, and he was always cleaning the house. He'd buy the child little teddy bears and clothes. He'd play with her, lifting her up. My girlie, Daddy's going to do this for you. Daddy's going to do that. Or he'd go for a spin with his girlfriend. He was teaching her how to drive. She was finding it hard to reverse around the curb, and she was giving up in it. So he put pallets together to try it a different way, and she got it. He was gifted at coming up with ideas to get things right. These are some of the things my brother did to take a stand for his own hopes and dreams. He loved that girl, he loved that baby, and he loved life.
We keep the heart up for each other through laughter. When the stress of parenting my children alone comes on me, I try not to let it take over my body, and I try not to take it out on my children either. I walk outside for 2 minutes and light an e-cigarette and take a drag after drag. I'll tell myself that they're just children and that they're going through it as much as I am. Then I'll go back in to play games and have fun with them. There's a game we all enjoy, and it's called Riddles.
Some days when I ring my partner from prison, she'd tell me I'm not having the best of a day. I'd say, is there anything I can say or do? I might say something funny to make her laugh.
I still laugh at the things my brother used to say. He'd have the crack of my mother by tossing her hair. She'd be saying, stop it, and he'd be slagging her. Sure, I'm fixing your hair.
Not doing prison rough and not doing it hard is important for our own mental health and for our family's mental health.
Many of us have skills of keeping our head down, avoiding trouble. We always learned those skills from our families. When children fought with us in school, our parents would encourage us in the understanding. I'm not going to bring myself down to your level. I'm going to walk away from it. We did that for years. It's like the song says by Kenny Rogers, you turn the other cheek. You take a deep breath, step back and walk away.
My grandfather taught me how to assess a situation. If he seen two people arguing, he'd say, stand back there a minute, there's something going on, leave it between them. He'd get you by the hand and he'd walk you to the way. I learnt a lot very quickly. I was very old-fashioned growing up. I could visualise a situation in seconds and know what was happening. It's like snooker. You have to assess the outcome and within a split second know your next move. The eye is a good judge. Many of us have found that getting into a routine helps us to cope and to move away from dossing and drugs or acting the bollocks. It helps us to occupy the mind and to take things day by day. My routine is school in the morning and gym at 2 o'clock and into the yard in at 5:30. The same routine nearly every day like clockwork.
Building close friendships with other prisoners is important. When you're missing your family, knowing you have friends also helps to reassure the family that you're trying to get on with everybody. There are a certain few. They might be travellers or settled. I back them up. They do the same for me. Some of us find help to talk to mates on days you're not, feeling the best, or when you're dealing with emotions after a visit. They would call me and I do a few laps with them, around the yard.
The best thing about being a traveller in Castlereagh prison is that we're a large minority. In another prison you're a knacker. Here you hear the bit of cant. You recognise your own kind. You speak with that person. You feel relaxed and safe with people who know the culture.
In our culture, music and songs are important for relaxing and helping to keep the head ticking over. You're in a different world, different mood. When you're listening to different kinds of music, a bit of reggae, a bit of country western. And if I'm in a good mood, I get into music by listening to the beat. It makes you feel like dancing. One day the world just had meaning. A few weeks ago I was listening to a song that I had often heard before. And on this day, the world suddenly came to life.
We had a sing-song in the prison for Traveller Pride and it done me heart good. When I seen other fellas going up singing, I kind of conquered that voice in my head that said, "Don't make a need of yourself." I'm dumping to sing a song. It was like a buzz without drink or drugs, a natural high. The day let us know the travellers weren't forgotten. It reminded me of Walk the Line. I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. I keep my eyes wide open all the time. I keep the ends for the tie that binds. Because you're mine, I walk the line.
Travellers survived many hard times by helping one another.
I left school at 14 because my little brother got sick and my parents had to be in hospital all day. I wanted to take care of my younger brothers and sisters. I didn't want them moved to other relations. My parents worried about me, but they were proud out of me for managing. I was proud of myself. I'm sure other people have done the same thing around the world. Caring for my family and other people has been important to me since I was able. I believe it's something human beings should do, is to help people. They mightn't be able to do it all the time, but a little help goes a long way. If more people did this, it would make life easier.
Sometimes I sit back and I think, how am I rearing my children by myself? The help I get from my parents and brothers and sisters and the in-laws is a very big relief. They might bring the children as far as the school there, or dancing or boxing, or even across to the hairdressers. Sometimes they might even do a bit of shopping for me when I can't get to the shops. See, what used to be the little things now means the big things, like the nappies and baby wipes my sister buys for me every week.
Many of us learned the importance of helping other people from our families. I remember once my uncle came back from England. He had picked up 2 strangers. My mother wouldn't let them go without being fed. Then she gave what little she had to the woman for her journey. I always throw something into a cup of a person homeless on the side of the street. If there were a few people in a row, I would keep something for each person. My son too would throw his last fiver into the cup. His kind heart shows he still holds on to some of the values that I taught.
Some of us volunteer to be Samaritans in prison. We're trained to be listeners. I might be in someone's cell for a casual chat and all of a sudden I'm listening. When another man knows I'm a listener, he knows he can tell me things and it won't be set back. When you know a person's going through something, you can try and see things from where they're coming from. If you can tap into that, you'll be a better person for it in yourself.
Sometimes deciding to accept the help of social workers requires skills of asking questions and allowing that little bit of time to develop trust. A social worker came to me in the hospital after I had my baby and my partner was in the jail. I was shocked. I told her that I thought social workers were for taking children off me. and she said, "We're not here for that." I questioned her, "What are you here for then?" And she said, "I'll help you in any way that I can." After a while then I started opening up to her a little bit more, and the social workers I have met have been a great help to me. They don't judge me, they don't haunt me, and they only come around when I ring them.
Inside prison, many of us has learned to stick our hands out. To reach out for help when you're feeling down. To learn to say, "I'm feeling down," doesn't hurt your pride or your family. I've learned that it's not a weakness. It gives me more honour and strength to be there for my children. I can be a role model for them. If my son sees me asking for help, he might start at a younger age. I always speak to my children in a way that lets them know that it's okay to talk about things.
Outside prison, there was many a part of me that was crying out for someone to listen. The last time I was out, my drugs counsellor called me out of the blue, and the call filled me with positivity. I picked 3 reasons why I take drugs: the company, to hear stories, and to feel wanted. When she read it back to me and when I saw it on paper, it was like it wasn't going around my head anymore. I can get those things without drugs, like going to the gym or going to mass.
Once my brother got the chance to go into a rehabilitation place. He was like a new penny when he came out. We were over the moon. Probation officers supported him to go in. His girlfriend was behind him, and he wanted to do it for the child who was after being born. When he was there, he rang me for family members to come in and talk to the counsellors. It meant a lot that he rang me. It showed that he trusted me to turn up for him. Those counsellors seemed to genuinely care about him. It meant the world to me that they could appreciate him. He felt the same about them because he told me they're so kind and he'd have the crack with them. I've lost my brother now, but the love I have for my brother connects me with the suffering of other families. It makes me passionate for a safe house that supports young people with addictions coming out of prison. A community of people to support these young people and their families, both travellers and settled people.
Many of us believe that if you're upset, talking to the dead people belonging to you would help, because they'd listen to you and kind of guide you. My grandmother believed that, and I believe it too.
When the bad days tried to stick me to the bed with dark thoughts, I'll often remember the words of my dead father during times of struggle. He used to always say, "Keep carrying on. There's worse off than you out there, and it won't last forever." I wake myself up with a shower, or take a spin in the car, or a walk on the beach. I'd often say to me boys, if Grandad was here, what would he think? Or what would he say?
If my mother was alive now, she'd be upset that I'm in jail. She'd be concerned about me, more concerned about my wife and child. She'd probably say, "You should have more cop on. You should be out here with your wife and child." And she'd say, "Now look son, you've learned your lesson now. Try not to go down that road again." That's what she'd say.
If my grandfather was alive right now, he'd be angry at me for being here in prison, because he reared me differently. When my old fella was in prison, my grandfather showed me what to do and what not to do. He understood me and loved everything about me. I'd walk the dogs for him and cut the timber and split the logs and clean his car all over. He used to love the silver beading. I'd travel with him to visit other people and come home with him late at night. When he'd get drowsy from his medication, I'd take the chance of driving. I was only 16, but I'd provide for my grandfather to get home safe. When he passed away, I got a portrait of him tattooed on my chest. It came out beautiful. My mother and my auntie were happy because they knew what it meant to me. I put him right on top of my heart where he couldn't get any closer. That bond with him is just unbreakable. Travellers survived by being able to put their hand to anything. Horses, dogs, collecting scrap, blacksmithing, wagons, making and mending buckets, hunting, roofing, building, fixing engines, generators, selling at markets, sewing, cooking, making clothes, making paper flowers. We were reared up to always look out for other options. Many of us got involved in the prison school by keeping our minds open to other options. Here you can do music and cooking, art, toe by toe, computers, woodwork, mentors, parenting classes.
I'm trying to get a safe pass, to be able and to do something else when I get out. Since I came to jail, I'm a step ahead in my learning. Before I had to get someone to read me letters. Now I can read the headlines in a newspaper. When you read something, it sticks in your head for longer.
In the prison school, you can have what most travellers would call an old-fashioned chat. You're not just a number. Teachers sit down and listen to what you have to say. Out in the yard, it's often the same old conversations about prison. In the school, you can have different conversations. The more people you talk to, the more stories you hear about different experiences of life. That's how some of us educated ourselves growing up, travelling around and getting to know different people.
In this school, there's an appreciation for our knowledge and skills from life experience, as in prison and on the streets. Prisoners will often listen better to other prisoners. There's a lot of peer-to-peer programs that are run by ourselves as prisoners. Conflict awareness, harm reduction, mediation. I am a mentor, helping my mate to read.
Deciding to go to the prison school, now that wasn't easy. If you had a hard man image, you might think, sure, I don't need to go to school. You might make a laugh of a schoolboy. It was my cousin who encouraged me to go to the school. I met him going around the yard with a paper and pen getting names to go to the courses. When another prisoner explains to me, you listen. I seen that he was doing very well. He was getting on with his time and was taking on different courses and taking time out just to help you. When you see other prisoners showing a lot of respect for the school and getting involved in things, you want to get involved in things yourself.
Some of us continued our education outside of prison. I done some level 4 modules in a place probation Iran. Computers, English, arts, cooking, food, nutrition, childcare. I put childcare above everything else because I want to be a better father to my children. I could identify things that I wasn't doing that my kids needed. Like going down to their eye level was important, and the sense of touch.
We want to give our children things that we hadn't got in life. They'll be full-blown travellers, but they'll be educated travellers.
As much as traveller education is important, we believe it needs to be the same for settled people. I know an awful lot of settled people and how they live their lives. Too many settled people are set in their ways. Too many feel that they have the power and the confidence to look down on us. That's not right. In 20 years' time, let the country people's children have a better understanding of traveller culture. Let them recognise that we are Irish. We are Irish people and we have a different culture. Because our culture is not going away.
We are strong in our culture because we love to learn from our grandparents' stories. If we are just with people our own age, we don't learn anything new. When we were called knacker in school and asked why, our grandparents told us stories to explain what we were about and how we were different. Their stories helped us deal with the racism.
Here in prison school, I found some old photographs of young travellers and old travellers around the tent. I hung them up on the wall of the library room to make the place homely. The pictures that went through me was of a woman and a grub box. Everything in the box, her livelihood, her life. The pictures remind me of my grandparents and of my father and mother's time. It reminds me of who I am and the culture I was reared in. We still love to hear the stories.